Hey everyone, it's Mia. Today, I want to share a story that still weighs heavy on my heart. A story about a home that wasn't as perfect as it seemed. If you had asked me back then, I would have said my family was happy. We weren't rich, but we had everything we needed. Dad would come home from work, tired but smiling. Mom would hum softly as she cooked dinner. And my little brother, Noah, would chase me around the house, giggling. Every night, we would sit around the dinner table together. Mom would ask about my school day. Dad would tell his funny work stories. And Noah would try to talk with his mouth full, making us all laugh. It was warm. It was safe. I thought we would always be like this, a family that stayed together no matter what. But I was wrong. The cracks were already there. I just hadn't noticed them yet. I started noticing the changes little by little. At first, they were small. Dad coming home later than usual. Mom staring at her phone with a deep frown. And dinner times that grew quieter each night. Noah, still too young to understand, kept playing and laughing as if nothing had changed. But I saw it. I saw the way Mum's smile faded faster, the way Dad avoided eye contact, the tension that filled the air even when no one spoke. One night, I heard them arguing in their room. Their voices were muffled, but the anger was clear. I pressed my pillow over my ears, trying to block it out. Maybe if I ignored it, things would go back to normal. Maybe it was just a bad day. But bad days kept coming, and soon they turned into something much worse. At first, I told myself it was just my imagination, that maybe I was overthinking. But as days passed, the warmth in our home faded. Mom and Dad barely spoke to each other. When they did, their voices were cold, filled with something I couldn't understand. One evening, I found Mom sitting alone at the dining table, staring at her untouched food. I sat beside her, hoping she would say something, anything. But she just smiled, a small, tired smile, and told me everything was fine. I wanted to believe her, I really did. But then there were nights when Dad didn't come home at all. Nights when I heard Mom crying in her room after she thought we were asleep. And the worst part? No one ever explained anything to me. I felt like I was watching my family fall apart, and I couldn't do anything to stop it. I don't remember the exact moment when everything truly fell apart. Maybe it was the night Mom and Dad had their worst fight yet. I was in my room, pretending to do homework, but their voices cut through the walls like knives. They weren't just arguing, they were shouting. Angry, hurtful words filled the air, words that couldn't be taken back. Noah woke up crying. I rushed to his room, hugging him tightly, whispering that everything would be okay. But I wasn't sure if that was true anymore. Then the front door slammed shut. Silence followed, a heavy, painful silence. I peeked out and saw Mom sitting on the couch, her hands covering her face. Dad was gone. I wanted to ask her if he was coming back. I wanted to ask her if we would ever be a happy family again, but I was too scared of the answer. The next morning, the house felt empty. Even though Mom, Noah, and I were still there, something was missing. Something we couldn't see but could feel in every corner. Dad's shoes weren't by the door. His coffee mug sat untouched on the counter. The chair where he always sat at breakfast was pulled out, like he had just been there, but he wasn't. Noah sat across from me, quietly eating his cereal. His eyes were red and puffy, like he had cried himself to sleep. I probably looked the same. Mom stood by the sink, staring out the window. She wasn't crying. But she wasn't okay either. I wanted to ask her if Dad was coming back, but I was afraid of the answer. School felt like a blur. I sat in class, staring at the board, but none of the words made sense. My friends asked if I was okay, but I just forced a smile and nodded. How could I tell them that my whole world had changed overnight? When I got home, the silence was still there. Noah sat on the couch, hugging his stuffed bunny. Mom was on the phone in the other room, speaking in a low voice. I didn't know who she was talking to, but I could hear the sadness in her tone. I wanted to believe this was temporary, that Dad would walk through the door any minute and say he just needed time to cool off. But deep down, I knew things would never be the same again. Days turned into weeks, but the heaviness in our home never faded. The silence wasn't just about missing Dad. It was about all the things we didn't say. Noah stopped asking where Dad was. Instead, he just played with his toys quietly, as if making too much noise would make everything worse. Mom tried to keep things normal, but I could see the exhaustion in her eyes. She was always on the phone, talking in hushed voices about bills, work, and things I wasn't supposed to hear. One evening, I found her sitting alone at the dining table, staring at an old family photo. It was from our last vacation. Dad had his arm around her. Noah was laughing, and I was making a silly face. We looked happy. I wanted to ask her if she missed him, but I already knew the answer. Instead, I sat down next to her. She looked at me and smiled, one of those tired, sad smiles. "We'll be okay?" she whispered. I nodded, even though I wasn't sure if it was true. Life didn't go back to normal. It never would. But somehow, we kept going. At school, I learned how to pretend I was fine. At home, I learned how to take care of Noah when Mom was too tired to, and at night, I learned how to cry quietly so no one would hear. But deep inside, a part of me still waited for the sound of Dad's car in the driveway, for the door to swing open, for everything to go back to the way it used to be. I knew that day might never come, but I still hoped.